The crystalline spires of the Viridian Military Academy pierced the violet sky of Helios Prime, their surfaces reflecting the light of twin suns. Marcus Drake stood at attention in the Academy's Grand Hall, surrounded by towering Viridian warriors whose iridescent scales shifted colors with each movement. The weight of his powered combat suit felt familiar, but the disapproving looks from the alien warriors made it seem heavier than usual. Lieutenant Kira Valther circled him slowly, her emerald scales catching the light. Her cybernetically enhanced eyes scanned his armor with obvious disdain. "So this is Earth's finest," she said, her translator barely keeping up with the clicking undertones of her native language. "A warrior who hides behind machines." Marcus remained still, letting her words wash over him. He'd expected this reception. The Viridian Empire had dominated their sector of space for millennia, their naturally armored bodies and enhanced strength making them formidable warriors. To them, humans were soft, weak creatures who relied on technology to compensate for their biological shortcomings. "The Council must be desperate," Kira continued, addressing the assembled warriors, "to send us a species that needs artificial protection just to survive in standard gravity." The gathered Viridians chittered in agreement, their scales rippling with amusement. Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm and measured. "Lieutenant Valther, I understand your skepticism, but perhaps you'd prefer to evaluate my capabilities in the training arena rather than making assumptions." Kira's head frills flared with interest. "You wish to challenge me here, now?" Her mandibles clicked rapidly, the Viridian equivalent of laughter. "Very well, human, I accept." The Grand Hall quickly transformed into a combat arena. The assembled warriors formed a circle, their bodies creating a living barrier. Marcus noticed how they positioned themselves not just as spectators, but as judges. This wasn't just about him anymore. He represented all of humanity. "Standard rules of engagement," Kira announced, taking her position. "First blood or submission, no lethal strikes." She rolled her shoulders, her natural armor plates shifting like living metal. "Though I doubt you'll manage either against me." Marcus nodded, then reached for his armor's release catches. The sound of hydraulics hissing filled the suddenly quiet hall. Piece by piece, the powered combat suit came apart, revealing the man beneath. The Viridians' chittering stopped. Where they expected to find a soft, weak human, they saw a warrior forged through years of intense training. Scars marked his skin, testimony to battles survived, and lessons learned. Augmented muscle fibers were visible beneath his skin, not artificial like their cybernetics, but grown from his own tissue through genetic engineering. Kira's expression shifted, her head frills twitching with newfound interest. "You would face me unarmored." Marcus rolled his shoulders, adjusting to the planet's higher gravity. "I wouldn't want you to have any excuses when this is over." The first attack came faster than most humans could follow. Kira launched herself forward, her natural armor plates extending into razor-sharp edges. But Marcus wasn't most humans. He moved with fluid precision, decades of enhanced combat training evident in every motion. Where Kira expected to find her target, she found empty air. The gathered warriors stirred, their scales shifting to deeper hues of interest. Kira spun, her surprise visible only in the slight flutter of her head frills. "Impressive," she admitted, circling again, "but speed alone won't save you." "Good thing I'm not relying just on speed then," Marcus replied, settling into a defensive stance that seemed to draw from multiple Earth combat styles. What followed was a dance of precision and power. Kira's natural weapons clashed against Marcus's calculated defensive techniques. Where she expected to find weakness, she discovered adaptation. When she thought she had him cornered, he revealed new layers of strategy. The battle continued, neither warrior gaining a clear advantage. Kira's attacks grew more focused, more precise, driven by something beyond mere duty. There was curiosity in her movements now, a desire to understand this human who defied her expectations. Blood was finally drawn, but not as anyone expected. Both warriors landed striking simultaneously, Marcus's fist finding a gap in Kira's natural armor just as her blade-like foreclaw scratched his shoulder. They froze, locked in that position, their blood mingling on the arena floor. "A draw," announced the Academy's commander, his scales shifting to a formal purple. "Most unexpected." Marcus and Kira separated, both breathing heavily. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, recognition, respect, and perhaps something more. The human had proven that strength came in many forms, and the Viridian had learned that her assumptions about humanity might need revision. Perhaps, Kira said, her translator struggling to convey the complex harmonics in her voice, we have more to learn from each other than I first thought. In the days following their draw in the arena, the atmosphere at the Viridian Military Academy shifted subtly. Where Marcus once faced open disdain, he now encountered curious glances and thoughtful silence. The morning after the duel, he found Lieutenant Kira Valther waiting for him in the training grounds, her scales gleaming in the early light of Helios Prime's twin suns. Your technique, she said without preamble, it's unlike anything in our combat databases. Show me. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Interested in human fighting styles now, Lieutenant. Interested in understanding how a supposedly inferior species managed to match me in combat. Her head frills twitched with what Marcus was learning to recognize as amusement. Unless you're afraid to share your secrets. The challenge in her voice was clear, but different from before, playful rather than dismissive. Marcus stepped onto the training mat, noting how other Viridian warriors began to gather at a respectful distance. Human combat styles evolved differently than yours, he explained, demonstrating a basic stance. We didn't have natural armor or enhanced strength. We had to learn to use our opponent's power against them. Kira mirrored his position, her movements precise. You speak of weakness, yet you stand here undefeated. Not weakness, adaptation. Marcus moved through a series of forms, each flowing into the next. Humans survived because we learned to turn disadvantages into strengths. Their training session attracted more observers, including Commander Vexther, who watched with unblinking cybernetic eyes. The old warrior's scales shifted through thoughtful patterns of blue and green as he observed the human and Viridian moving in sync. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the academy. Red emergency lights pulsed along the crystalline walls, and the commander's scales flashed to alert crimson. Multiple breach signatures detected in the outer rim defense grid, announced a synthetic voice. Unknown hostile forces approaching Helios Prime, all warriors to battle stations. Kira's head frills flattened against her skull, a sign of focused aggression. The swarm, she hissed. They're early this cycle. Marcus followed her and Commander Vexther to the Academy's command center, where holographic displays showed the approaching threat. Hundreds of organic-looking ships moved through space with unsettling synchronization. The swarm attacks our worlds every 30 cycles, Commander Vexther explained, his translator struggling to convey the complex harmonics of concern in his voice. But never with such numbers and never this soon. Marcus studied the tactical displays, his enhanced eyes picking up patterns in the swarm's movement. Their formation, it's familiar. He stepped closer to the hologram, gesturing to specific ship clusters. We encountered something similar in the Arcturus campaign. They're not just attacking, they're hurting. Kira's scales shifted to a deep purple of revelation. Hurting us toward what? More alarms sounded as new signatures appeared on the displays. A massive vessel emerged from fold space, its biological architecture dwarfing the smaller swarm ships. Its surface writhed with tentacular appendages, each tipped with weapons that defied conventional physics. A hive mother, Commander Vexther's scales paled to ash gray. We haven't seen one since the Great War. Our orbital defenses cannot withstand such a creature. Marcus's mind raced through combat scenarios, combining human tactical doctrine with what he'd learned of Viridian capabilities. Your warriors have natural armor that can withstand vacuum, he said, turning to Kira, and unparalleled close combat skills. Her head frills twitched with interest. While you humans have experience fighting these creatures and technology designed to counter their biological advantages. Exactly. Marcus pulled up his tactical interface, projecting a modified battle plan. We don't need to defeat the entire swarm, we just need to get a strike team aboard the Hive Mother, hit it where it's vulnerable. Commander Vexther's scales rippled with skepticism. You propose a joint operation? Our warriors have never fought alongside humans. Then it's time we started. Kira stepped forward, her scales shifting to match Marcus's armor color, a deliberate show of solidarity that sent murmurs through the command center. The human proved himself in personal combat. Now let him prove himself in war. The commander studied them both, his cybernetic eyes whirring as they analyzed invisible spectra. Finally, his scales settled into the formal purple of command decision. Lieutenant Valther, assemble your best warriors. Commander Drake, you have tactical authority for this operation. The fate of Helios Prime rests in your hands. As they hurried to the armory, Kira caught Marcus's eye. It seems you'll have another chance to prove humans don't need armor to be strong. Marcus checked his weapons while watching Viridian warriors don their ceremonial combat attire. Sometimes the strongest bonds are forged in battle. Her translator crackled with an unusual harmonic, something between amusement and anticipation. Then let us forge something unprecedented, human, together. The assault shuttle cut through space like a blade, its stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible against the backdrop of battle. Inside, Marcus watched as Kira briefed her elite squad of Viridian warriors, their scales shifting in complex patterns of anticipation and determination. The human tactic is unconventional, she explained, her translator perfectly conveying her confidence in the plan. But that's exactly why it will work. The swarm expects us to fight as we always have, with direct force and honorable combat. Instead, Marcus added, standing beside her, we're going to show them something they've never seen before, Viridian strength combined with human ingenuity. The shuttle shuddered as it passed through the outer layers of the swarm's defense screen. Through the viewport, Marcus could see the massive form of the Hive Mother, its biological architecture pulsing with otherworldly energy. Smaller swarm ships darted around it like antibodies protecting a vital organ. 3 minutes to insertion point, announced the pilot, his scales a focused blue. May the first ones guard our path. Marcus checked his modified combat suit one last time. It had been adjusted to complement Viridian fighting styles rather than replace them. Lighter, more flexible, with built-in interfaces that could sync with their natural combat instincts. Beside him, Kira's squad had integrated human tactical systems into their own gear, creating a hybrid of biological and technological warfare capabilities. Remember, Marcus said, we're not trying to outfight them, we're going to outthink them. The shuttle's hull resonated with impact as they breached the Hive Mother's outer membrane. Organic matter sealed around their entry point, attempting to absorb or crush their vessel. But the shuttle's modified shields held, creating a stable insertion pocket. Warriors of two worlds, Kira addressed the strike team, her head frills raised in ceremonial challenge. Today we write a new chapter in the history of both our species. Fight with honor, but more importantly, fight to win. They breached the Hive Mother's interior in perfect synchronization. Viridian warriors moved with fluid grace through the organic corridors, their natural armor deflecting the caustic atmosphere. Marcus's team provided covering fire with specialized weapons designed to disrupt the swarm's biological systems. The inside of the Hive Mother was a nightmare of twisted biological architecture. Walls pulsed with visible nerve clusters, and defense organisms emerged from every surface. But where previous attacks had failed by fighting head-on, this hybrid team danced through the chaos with lethal efficiency. The neural cluster should be 2 levels down, Marcus called out, his sensors mapping the creature's internal structure. That's where we'll find the swarm queen. Kira moved beside him, her bladed appendages slicing through a group of defender organisms. The last team that made it this far was digested alive. The queen's chamber is said to be impenetrable. That's because they tried to cut their way in, Marcus grinned, pulling out a specialized device. We're going to let the Hive Mother invite us. The device activated, emitting frequencies that mimicked the swarm's own neural patterns. The organic walls around them shuddered, and previously sealed passages began to open. Clever, Kira's scales shifted with appreciation, using their own biology against them. They fought their way deeper into the living ship, human and Viridian tactics blending seamlessly. Where the warriors' natural weapons couldn't penetrate, human tech created openings. When electronic systems were disrupted by the Hive Mother's defenses, Viridian biological adaptations kept them moving forward. Finally, they reached the central chamber. The swarm queen hung suspended in a massive neural web, her form both beautiful and terrifying. Multiple eyes fixed upon the intruders, and her psychic presence pressed against their minds like a physical weight. Your species are young, her thoughts invaded their consciousness. You cannot hope to comprehend, let alone defeat, what we represent. Marcus stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Kira. "You're right about one thing," he said, activating the final phase of their plan. "We are young, but that just means we're really good at adapting." Kira's warriors moved into position, their scales resonating at frequencies that disrupted the Queen's psychic control. At the same time, Marcus's team deployed devices that began breaking down the neural web's biological cohesion. "Impossible," the Queen's thoughts became chaotic. "Your species are separate, primitive, you cannot." "That's your mistake," Kira declared, moving in perfect sync with Marcus as they approached the weakening Queen. "You saw our differences as weakness, we saw them as strength." The Queen's defenses collapsed under the combined assault. As the neural web disintegrated, the massive hive mother began to lose cohesion, its biological systems falling into chaos without its central control. "Time to leave," Marcus called out, but his eyes stayed locked with Kira's. In that moment, surrounded by the death throes of an alien superorganism, Human and Viridian found perfect understanding. As their shuttle escaped the disintegrating hive mother, they watched the swarm ships fall into disarray. Without the Queen's control, the once mighty armada became nothing more than drifting organic matter. "Perhaps," Kira said softly, her scales shimmering with colors Marcus had never seen before, "there is more to strength than what we first believe." The victory celebration in the Viridian Military Academy's Great Hall was cut short by an unsettling discovery. Marcus stood before the gathered War Council, his tactical display projecting analysis of the Hive Mother's neural patterns. Beside him, Kira's scales had shifted to a deep indigo of concern. "The attack wasn't random," Marcus explained, highlighting specific data streams. "The swarm's behavioral patterns showed signs of external guidance. Someone was controlling them." Commander Vexther's cybernetic eyes whirred as they processed the information. "Impossible. The swarm has always been autonomous. No known species can interface with their neural network." "No known species." Kira stepped forward, her head frills twitching with agitation. "But our long-range sensors detected unusual energy signatures during the battle. They matched restricted research projects from our own military archives." The revelation sent ripples of color cascading through the assembled Viridian warriors. Marcus watched as their scales shifted through patterns of disbelief, anger, and fear. He had learned enough of their color language to understand the gravity of Kira's words. "You're suggesting treason," one of the council members' scales flashed aggressive red. "That someone within the Empire would ally with the swarm." "I'm suggesting something worse," Kira's voice carried harmonics of grim determination. "Someone has found a way to control them." Marcus pulled up additional data streams. The attack on Helios Prime wasn't an invasion, it was a test. Someone wanted to see if they could direct the swarm's full might against a specific target. The council chamber erupted in debate, but a sudden security alert silenced all discussion. The Academy's defense grid was detecting multiple breaches in its secure databases. Someone was extracting classified research files, and the trace led to the highest levels of Viridian command. "The council chamber is compromised." Marcus's enhanced senses picked up subtle changes in the room's environmental systems. "They're flooding the air with neural suppressants." Kira reacted instantly, her natural armor plates extending to filter the air around her. "The old protocols," she hissed. "They're trying to access the ancestral command codes. With those, they could." "Control not just the swarm," Marcus finished, "but the entire Viridian defense network." He activated his suit's emergency protocols, extending its protective field around nearby warriors. "We need to get to the central archive, now." They fought their way through their own academy, now turned against them by unseen enemies. Defensive turrets emerged from crystalline walls, and security drones attacked with lethal precision. But the combination of Kira's intimate knowledge of the facility and Marcus's tactical adaptability kept them moving forward. "The archive's quantum core is sealed behind biological locks," Kira explained as they approached the central vault. "Only pure Viridian genetic codes can access it." Marcus studied the security systems with his enhanced vision. "Unless someone's modified the locks to accept swarm neural patterns, look at the bioelectric signature, it's been altered." They found Admiral Zexkar in the archive chamber, his scales writhing with unnatural patterns of blue-black energy. Around him, Holographic displays showed tactical data of both Viridian and Swarm forces merging into a single, terrifying battle plan. "You've seen only a fraction of what's possible." The Admiral's voice carried the same harmonic overtones as the Swarm Queen's. "Our species has grown stagnant, clinging to outdated notions of honor and natural evolution. The Swarm offers us perfection." "It offers extinction." Kira's scales flared with righteous fury. "You would destroy everything our ancestors built." "I would elevate us beyond their limited vision." Zexkar's body began to transform, his natural armor melding with Swarm biomatter. "The Viridian Empire will evolve, consuming all in its path, and humanity—" He fixed his gaze on Marcus. "Your adaptability makes you perfect test subjects." The fight that followed pushed both Marcus and Kira to their limits. The Admiral's hybrid form combined Viridian combat prowess with Swarm biological weapons. But where he fought alone, they moved as one human tactical innovation perfectly complementing Viridian martial skill. "Your greatest weakness," Marcus called out as they pressed their attack, "is assuming that difference means division." Kira struck from the opposite side, her natural weapons enhanced by human technology. "We are stronger together than you could ever be alone." Their synchronized assault overwhelmed the Admiral's defenses. As his hybrid form collapsed, Marcus deployed a targeted electromagnetic pulse, severing the neural connection to the Swarm network. Kira delivered the final blow with ancient Viridian precision, ensuring no trace of the corruption remained. In the aftermath, as security forces secured the facility, Marcus and Kira stood in the archive chamber, surrounded by evidence of how close both their species had come to destruction. "Your people have a saying." Kira's scales shifted through complex patterns of reflection. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." Perhaps we were always meant to find each other. Marcus smiled, resting a hand on her armored shoulder. "I prefer to think we chose our own path. That's what really terrifies our enemies, not our strength, but our ability to choose how we use it." 1 month after Admiral Zexkar's failed coup, the Great Assembly Hall of the Viridian Military Academy hosted an unprecedented gathering. Representatives from both Earth and the Viridian Empire stood together beneath the crystalline dome, their differences highlighted by the twin suns' light streaming through ancient archways. Marcus watched from his position near the central platform as Kira addressed the assembled dignitaries. Her scales shimmered with formal colors of ceremony and change, reflecting the historic nature of the moment. "The attempted corruption of our forces by the Swarm revealed a truth we had long ignored." Her voice carried harmonics of conviction that needed no translation. "Isolation breeds weakness. It is in combination, in the melding of different strengths, that we find true power." The evidence they had recovered from the archive had exposed a network of conspirators across both human and Viridian space. Those who feared the mixing of their species had nearly handed victory to their greatest enemy. Now, that same crisis had forged an unbreakable bond between their peoples. Commander Vexler stepped forward, his cybernetic eyes surveying the gathered assembly. "Today, we formalize what Lieutenant Valther and Commander Drake have proven through their actions, the creation of the first joint human Viridian defense force." Marcus moved to stand beside Kira as holographic displays activated around them, showing the new combined fleet. Viridian bioships had been enhanced with human adaptive technology, while Earth vessels now incorporated living crystal arrays that enhanced their natural strengths. "Some called our differences insurmountable," Marcus addressed the assembly. "They said humans were too soft, too reliant on artificial enhancements. They claimed Viridians were too rigid, too bound by tradition. But those very differences saved both our worlds." The assembly watched as tactical simulations demonstrated the effectiveness of their combined forces. Human strategic flexibility complemented Viridian martial prowess. Earth's technological innovations enhanced the Empire's biological advantages. Together, they had created something entirely new. "The Swarm taught us an invaluable lesson," Kira continued, her scales shifting to match the colors of Marcus's formal uniform, a deliberate symbol of unity. "Strength lies not in purity but in adaptation, not in separation but in synthesis." A young Viridian warrior stepped forward, their scales showing training colors. "But how can we trust that these changes won't weaken our traditional ways?" Marcus smiled, recognizing the same skepticism he had faced upon his arrival. Your traditions aren't weakened by incorporating new ideas, they're enriched by them, just as our technology is enhanced by your biological wisdom. Look at your scales, Kira addressed the young warrior directly. They change color not because they're weak, but because adaptation is your strength. We're not asking you to become human, nor are we becoming Viridian. We're evolving together. The assembly chamber hummed with discussion as more evidence of their successful collaboration was presented. Joint training programs had already produced warriors who combined the best of both species' combat philosophies. Research teams had made breakthroughs by merging biological and technological approaches. Commander Vexter raised his ceremonial blade, its crystalline edge catching the light. Let it be recorded that on this day, the Viridian Empire and Earth's united forces become one shield against the darkness, not through conquest or submission, but through mutual respect and understanding. As the formal ceremonies concluded, Marcus found himself standing with Kira in the same training ground where they had first fought. The space had been transformed, now featuring both traditional Viridian combat circles and human tactical training systems. "Did you ever imagine," he asked, watching new recruits of both species training together, "that your challenge to a supposedly weak human would lead to this?" Kira's scales rippled with amusement and something deeper. "I imagined many outcomes, but none as satisfying as this reality." She turned to face him fully. "You taught us that true strength isn't about having the hardest armor or the sharpest claws. And you taught us that tradition and adaptation aren't opposing forces," Marcus replied. "They're part of the same evolution." Above them, the twin suns of Helios Prime painted the crystalline spires in shades of gold and purple. Human ships moved in formation with Viridian vessels, their combined presence a testament to how far they had come. The next generation would grow up seeing this as natural, the way things should be. "There will be more challenges," Kira noted, her scales shifting through predictive patterns. "More enemies who fear what we've become." Marcus nodded, his enhanced senses detecting the complex harmonics in her voice. "Let them come. They'll find something unprecedented waiting for them, something stronger than either of us could be alone." As if in response to his words, a group of mixed human and Viridian trainees completed a perfect synchronized combat drill, their different fighting styles blending into something entirely new. Something that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what strength truly meant.